Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Midnight News Edition, brought to you by All 24 News. These are the headlines. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received on Sunday the Secretary General of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. At least 11 people, including 3 soldiers, were killed in northern Burkina Faso on Saturday in an attack by terrorists. Also coming up, as France's union strikes continue their action for the 3rd week in a row, gas stations are paralyzed with efforts to contain the crisis. Also in our news, Chinese President Xi Jinping said China will never give up the right to use force, but will strive for a peaceful solution, criticizing the interference of external forces in Taiwan. Hello and welcome again. And before delving into developing these top stories, let's begin with Algeria, where on Sunday, a new judicial year started in Algeria, the opening of which was chaired by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the chairman of the Superior Judiciary Council at the Supreme Court in Algiers. The opening ceremony took place in the presence of senior officials and members of the government. In a speech during the opening ceremony, President Tebboune stressed his willingness to accelerating the pace of work in response to the economic and social realities.
نتطلع في هذه السنة القضائية الجديدة إلى تسريع وتيرة العمل القضائي بما يستجيب لمتطلبات الواقع الاقتصادي والاجتماعي، وكلنا نعلم ما تستحقه المؤسسة القضائية من مكانة رفيعة، فإننا حريصون كل الحرص على تعزيز آليات استقلاليتها قصد ضمان سيادة القانون وصيانة الحريات وتحقيق المساواة في الحقوق والواجبات.
And in the same context, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune also called on the government to expedite the installation of commercial courts in a way that improves the business climate and enhances the guarantees in the investment law.
تشهد المرحلة القادمة مجهودات أخرى لتكييف المنظومة التشريعية حسب المستجدات وما تمليه الديناميكية الاقتصادية، وفي هذا الإطار أدعو الحكومة للإسراع في تنصيب المحاكم التجارية المتخصصة وإصدار القوانين المساهمة في تحسين مناخ العمل أو مناخ الأعمال لتعزيز الضمانات الموجودة وتقويتها في ظل قانون جديد للاستثمار.
And in a different story, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Aboulghait, said that Algeria's preparations for the Arab Summit, which will be held in Algeria on the 1st and 2nd of November, are proceeding in a very good manner. Aboulghait, in a statement to Algeria's international channel, All 24 News, added that the goal of this visit to Algeria is related to political consultations with Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune and Foreign Minister Mr. Amamra to complete talks on the important event.
يعني احنا الحقيقة أتيح لنا الفرصة إن احنا نناقش.
We have actually had the opportunity to discuss everything that is related to the summit, with all its axes, programs, arrangements, and preparations, as well as its general management. I think there is a full consensus with the Algerian Foreign Minister Amamra about this. We're content and optimistic that the next Arab Summit, God's willing, will be successful and perfectly organized as it should be.
Aboulghait also stressed that there is great hope for Arab reunification on all axes and directions, welcoming Algeria's declaration on Palestinian reconciliation, expressing his hope that the agreement will be implemented literally and that no party will seek to abandon it.
هذه القمة اسمها قمة لم الشمل.
This is a ranks uniting summit. Thus, there is a great hope that the unification takes place at all levels and axes. We showed our support for this declaration of Algiers and our hope for executing it. The hope is great that the Palestinian side, particularly Palestinian factions, should learn the lesson that division leads to weakness. Thus, to face up occupying Israel and its settlement, we have to unite the joint Palestinian work.
إنه الجانب الفلسطيني الفصائل الفلسطينية.
And speaking of the Palestinian factions, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called the signing of Palestinian factions of the Algiers Declaration for the reunification of ranks a positive step towards intra-Palestinian reconciliation, hailing the efforts deployed by Algeria and particularly by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune in favor of reconciliation. This came in a statement released on Saturday by the spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Mr. Stéphane Dujarric. And in the same line of thoughts, in a letter addressed to the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, the President of the Sahrawi Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Mr. Ibrahim Ghali, welcomed the signing of the Algiers Declaration for Palestinian Reconciliation, qualifying this historical encounter process. Mr. Ghali also saluted all those who contributed to this noble effort crowned by the Algiers Declaration in favor of the unification of the Palestinian ranks. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune received on Sunday the Secretary General of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, Haytham El Ghais, who is on a 3-day working visit to Algeria. The meeting, which took place at the headquarters of the Algerian presidency, was attended by the Director of the Presidential Office, Abdelaziz Khalaf, and Minister of Energy and Mines, Mr. Mohamed Arqab.
We have listened to the directives and advice of the President Abdelmadjid Tebboune about the work for the OPEC, the unification and the organization, the importance of supporting the collective work in working for the organization, and the importance of the Algerian role in the OPEC. As you know, Algeria played a pivotal role even in this last agreement, which was held in 2016. In fact, the foundation of this agreement was from Algeria. In September 2016, I thanked the President of the Republic, as well as the Algerian team which works with us in the OPEC, for the support in Algerian role.
And earlier in the day, energy cooperation among OPEC member countries as well as investment opportunities were high on the agenda of the meeting between the Secretary General of OPEC and the Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mr. Mohamed Arqab.
أسواق النفط طبعا تمر في مرحلة تقلبات كبيرة مثل ما تعرفون وتشهدون.
The hydrocarbon market is going through a multitude of disruptions. As you can see, it's the role of OPEC organization and the purpose of our alliance with producers, so as the OPEC safeguards the stability of the various markets. We aim to preserve as well as the balance between supply and demand, and to ensure the supply of gas to different world markets. I think there are many investment opportunities in hydrocarbons in Algeria. This afternoon we have an audience with His Excellency the President of the Republic to listen to his directives and his advice concerning our exercise within OPEC, as well as Algeria's future projections in the organization and its hydrocarbon markets.
منظمة أوبك وتوجيهات الجمهورية الجزائرية للمرحلة القادمة إن شاء الله في أوبك ولأسواق النفط.
And for his part, Algerian Energy and Mines Minister Mohamed Arqab qualified the last decision taken by the OPEC organization as historic, and that there will certainly be a positive impact on stabilizing market and oil prices.
تحدثنا على السوق العالمي والقرار الأخير اللي اتخذته الأوبك بلس.
We discussed the global market as well as the last decision taken by the OPEC Plus, a historic decision which preserves the stability of the market, as well as the stability of oil market to face the future challenges. We reviewed and went through all the fields of hydrocarbon activities in Algeria and how to develop it, and how to help each other within the organization to develop the hydrocarbon sector in Algeria, and the important boost OPEC can bring to Algeria to enhance the hydrocarbon sector.
للجزائر في كل المساعي للجزائر لتطوير النشاط كذلك المحروقات.
To neighboring Tunisia now, IMF staff and the Tunisian authorities have marched or reached a staff-level agreement to support Tunisia's economic policies with a 48-month arrangement under the extended fund facility of about $1.9 billion. Tunisia's new IMF-supported homegrown program aims to restore macroeconomic stability, strengthen social safety nets and tax equity, and step up reforms and support an enabling environment for inclusive growth and sustainable job creation. The UN Security Council will hold a closed-door consultation session Monday in New York on the situation in Western Sahara, followed by a briefing by the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Western Sahara, Alexander Ivanko, and the personal envoy of the UN Secretary General for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura. During these consultations, the members of the Security Council are scheduled to receive the annual report of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the Western Sahara, released in October. A Palestinian man who was shot by Zionist forces in the occupied West Bank on Saturday night has died out of his wounds. The slain man is Ahmed Dawood, a 31-year-old Palestinian from the town of Karawet, Bani Hassan. Dawood was rushed to Istishari Hospital in Ramallah, where efforts to save his life failed. His killing came after violent clashes between Zionist forces who opened fire on civilians. To Russia-Ukraine file now. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Ukrainian troops are still holding the strategic eastern town of Bakhmut, despite repeated Russian attacks, while the situation in the Donbas region remains very difficult. Zelensky's statements came at a time when Russian missiles and drones had continued to hit Ukrainian cities, causing destruction and casualties.
Active fighting continues in various areas of the front. A very difficult situation persists in the Donetsk region and Luhansk region. The most difficult situation is in the direction of Bakhmut. As in previous days, we're holding our positions. In general, in the east and the south, we do everything to make the occupiers feel that they have no prospects. Whoever they send to fight against us, it will end in defeat for them. Some of the missiles and drones were shot down, but unfortunately not all of them. Unfortunately, there is destruction and casualties.
To Iran now, where clashes broke out and a fire was declared on Saturday, October 15th, in Evin prison in Tehran. The official news agency IRNA, citing the Iranian judiciary, reported 4 deaths and 61 wounded among detainees because of this fire. Shared images on social media have shown in the evening immense flames and a thick smoke released from the enclosure located northwest of the Iranian capital. The news comes after Iran criticized US President Joe Biden for voicing support for the protests that have rocked Iran since a young woman was killed in police custody. And in a different incident, at least 11 people, including 3 soldiers, were killed in northern Burkina Faso on Saturday in an attack by terrorists. An ambush by armed terrorist groups targeted a mixed patrol of soldiers and volunteers for the defense of Homeland Army auxiliaries in the town of Burum in the north of the country. This attack comes a day after the appointment of Captain Traoré as president of the transition by national meetings. To China now. Chinese President Xi Jinping said Sunday at the opening of the 20th Congress of the ruling Communist Party that China will never give up the right to use force, but will strive for a peaceful solution. Chinese President Xi Jinping criticized the interference of external forces in Taiwan, noting that the conference is taking place at a sensitive moment for China. Zahra Farjani has the full details.
President Xi Jinping kicked off the 20th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing with a speech to defend his record of the past 5 years and outline his country's future priorities. Around 2,300 delegates gathered in Beijing's imposing Great Hall of the People, while President Xi stressed the critical moment in which the Congress is held.
The 20th Congress of the Communist Party of China is a very important Congress convened at a critical time, when the whole party and the people of all ethnicities are embarked on the path of building a modern socialist country, and we're marching towards it, the second objective of the centenary.
Chinese president said the CPC will support Hong Kong and Macau in better integrating themselves into China's overall development and playing a greater role in realizing national rejuvenation. President Xi said the CPC will implement its overall policy for resolving the Taiwan question in the new era and unswervingly advance the cause of national reunification.
Resolving the Taiwan question is a matter for the Chinese, a matter that must be resolved by the Chinese. We will continue to strive for peaceful reunification with the greatest sincerity and the utmost effort, but we will never promise to renounce the use of force, and we reserve the option of taking all measures necessary. This is directed solely at interference by outside forces and the few separatists seeking the Taiwan independence and their separatist activities.
China remains firm in pursuing an independent foreign policy of peace. President Xi said China is committed to its fundamental national policy of opening to the outside world, and the Chinese people are ready to work hand in hand with people across the world to create an even brighter future for humanity.
And for more details on the matter, we are joined live by Mrs. Zhang Shanghui, Chinese national television journalist. Hello, Mrs. Zhang, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for inviting me this time.
Thank you. The first question, Mrs. Zhang, in a response to President Xi's speech, Taiwan stressed that democratic freedom is the belief and insistence of its people. So, Mrs. Zhang, do you think that Taiwan's independence sovereignty is a reachable goal?
This is not talking about Taiwan's sovereignty, it's talking about Chinese sovereignty and reunification of China, because Taiwan is part of China. So when China is going to resolve its own problem, is a kind of problem considered as an inner problem inside China. So what Xi Jinping was talking about yesterday is more about realizing national reunification through the peace is actually our first choice to resolve the Taiwan question. But what he wanted also is during this 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China to give some indications about what will be in the future, because the relation between the continental part of China and Taiwan is very delicate since already since 1949. But Taiwan is still considered as part of China. So today in China, we can in Taiwan now we can view that this is another system, another political system. But in progressively, Taiwan will be back as part of China. But in that case, is Taiwan still having its own policy? Is like one system, two policy, or two these issues that we can talk about in the future.
Yes, and are we expecting a use of force really from China? But when we talk about reunification, do we have to resort to force here?
Here we are talking about reunification, peaceful reunification. And this is what Xi Jinping said yesterday. He said that we're willing to continue with the greatest sincerity and exerting our utmost efforts to achieve a peaceful reunification. But he also said that it is not promising to renounce the use of force, and we're in no way targeting our Taiwan compatriot, but rather foreign interference and an extremely small number of Taiwan independence elements and their separative activists. So this is about the general policy of Beijing. Beijing said that today, actually, we're not targeting the compatriots in Taiwan. It's more for counter the foreign interference, those who actually want to interfere in Chinese inner affairs.
Very nice.
But Xi Jinping also said that the goal is to advance the process of a Chinese
Thank you so much, Mrs. Zhang. You were live with us from Beijing. Moving on now to France, a union strike continue their action for the third week in a row. Gas stations are paralyzed with efforts to contain the crisis. However, the fuel shortage isn't the only issue that is troubling France. Other protests took place in the heart of Paris, calling for higher wages amid the upsurge of costs of living. Islam said.
No end is clear for France's fuel crisis, as queues in gas stations are getting longer and longer every day. Refineries of gasoline are struggling with supply chain that have been interrupted by 3 weeks union strikes of Total Energies, which are expected to go on and expand to other industrial branches across the Republic.
If there are very tense situations, tomorrow, for example, we will also make requisitions. But I would like everyone to be aware that requisitioning is a tool that cannot be used routinely and can only be used when there is a threat of disturbing public order. I can confirm that as a result of the weekend, things have deteriorated a bit. There are about 30% of the stations that have a supply problem on at least one of the fuels.
Crises are piling up in France. Sunday, which is a holiday in the country, did not prevent thousands of people led by left-wing opponents of Macron to board the streets of Paris against the unprecedented increase in food and energy prices. The protesters raised banners calling for higher wages, a freeze on energy prices and basic needs. They also criticized the government's policies in the face of rising costs of living and declining purchasing power.
We have few of demands. For me, being here shows that we must act and resist exploitation. As for the cost of living, we have an inflation at 6%. But if we take consumer goods into account, it's more than 10%. So the loss of purchasing power is at 10%. Basically a drop in salaries. That's what it comes down to.
Fuel scarcity images express how severe the situation is. Vehicles with empty tanks and people ready to do anything, to fill in at least 2 or 3 bottles with fuel. These stereotype scenes are often caught in some of the third world countries, where many people scrap with everyday basics. However, they are now portrayed in many European countries, including France, since the beginning of the war in Ukraine.
And for more details on the situation in France, we are joined live by Mr. Manuel Pouchelet, a geopolitical analyst. Mr. Manuel Pouchelet, thank you for agreeing to be with us. And my question is, how bad is this fuel shortage in France? It seems it's been built in for weeks now. How can you update us?
Yes, of course. The number of petrol shortage stations is stabilizing and varies according to region and department. The most affected are the north of the France and Paris area. Some towns in the center are also affected. The inhabitants of the countryside are very affected by the strike movement, where they need their car for slightest journey, With the mobilization of fuel depot strikers exceeds the population that uses its car to move. Many professionals are affected and the tension rises in the stations where it's necessary to fill up. The police and the gendarmerie are obliged to be deployed to check that no one is filling jerry cans with petrol where it's forbidden at the moment. This movement is set to last, and the government's advisor haven't seen nothing of it. There will be a strike announced on Tuesday, October the 18th, on the request of the many unions. The demands are numerous, and they are against the movement's policy of not managing to bring down prices. Its recommendations infantilize the population, which annoyed and especially worried about an uncertain future.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manuel Pouchelet. You were live with us from Paris. Moving on now to some cultural news, where the film Winnipeg, produced by Algerian director Rabah Soleimani, won the major prize at the 17th edition of the World Film Festival in Western Sahara, with the slogan, "Let's end colonialism from the Western Sahara." The film narrates the tragedies of the Sahrawi people during the construction of the wall by Morocco in the 80s to isolate Sahrawi people. Many film personalities from different countries participated in the festival. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news bulletin comes to a close. For more stories, don't forget to visit our social media platform. Bye for now.